Thank you. I think this is incredible. I think scale for Mr. Adani means a totally different thing than what it means for most of us. I think they've achieved much more, and everyone knows the Adani Group and Mr. Gautam Adani. But still, a quick cap on what all of us should know. He's the founder and chairman of the Adani Group, leads a diverse conglomerate of India. It has 6 publicly traded entities with a market cap of over 55 US dollars billion. And his primary interest, as you saw in the video, is energy, ports, logistics, and mining. And in every sector that I've just named, he's the largest in India. He's a first generation entrepreneur like most of us and most of you, and so an inspiration in himself. And he's driven by the core philosophy of infusing growth with goodness through nation building. Each of his core group's business is focused on helping build world-class integrated infrastructure capabilities that India needs to acquire growth. And all this is in absolutely to a largest scale possible. Nation building for him means transforming the coastline of India by building a series of ports, related logistics hubs, and the process generated several tens and thousands of jobs, obviously. It means transforming the power scenario in India and mitigating the urban-rural divide by delivering electricity to several hundred millions of living in the hinterlands of India. It means food security by building a modern agriculture supply chain, empowering the farmers of our country. It means to fulfill India's objective and become one of the largest global players in sustainable energy by making the largest national commitment to the solar ecosystem and building an integrated manufacturing generation and solar park business. And the list goes on. All of these are absolutely phenomenal achievements in the domain that they are in. The foundation that he runs, which is the group's CSR activity, which is also equally strong and has 3 interest areas pan-India across education, healthcare, community infrastructure, and sustainable livelihood, which has touched more than 3.5 million direct or indirect beneficiaries in 2,300 villages across Indian states. So, ladies and gentlemen, without much ado, let me present to you Mr. Gautam Adani. Good morning, Mr. Adani.
Thank you, Mr. Mahavir Sharma, for your kind words of introductions. A very good morning to everyone in India, and good evening to all of you in the US. Let me start off by congratulating the TiE Global Summit team and the charter and the associate members to have pulled together an event of this scale. I'm just amazed at the quality of thought leaders you have speaking at this summit. It is a great testimony to the ability of TiE to bring together a global ecosystem of top-notch entrepreneurs, along with a diverse group of thought-leading investors and executives from companies around the world. I'm honored to have been invited. My talk today is about incredible India and the opportunities ahead for India. So let me set some context. As you would expect, being an entrepreneur, I'm naturally positive about the future. Therefore, the best part of us speaking at a summit like TiE is the freedom to be able to speak to an audience that passionately believes in opportunity for a better tomorrow. In my view, India is today at a dramatic inflection point. I believe that over the next few decades, India will have a firmly positioned itself as the greatest opportunity of the 21st century and become even stronger year 2050 onwards. Yes, there will be challenges that will require healthy debates, as should be the case in a democracy. Yes, there will be a periods of slowdown that every large economy goes through. Yes, there will be remain difficult challenges for India to overcome, but there simply cannot be any denial of the scale of the opportunity that awaits India. Let me outline my logic by addressing three major areas that I see defining India over the next 3 decades. First, the macroeconomic factors that favor India. Second, the intersection of digitization and sustainable energy and its transformational impact. Third, accelerated new possibilities for India in a post-COVID world. Let me start with my views of the macroeconomic factors that I believe will favor India. Today, the global GDP is $85 trillion, of which India is 2.8 trillion. In 2050, the global GDP is expected to be 170 to 180 trillion dollars, and the Indian GDP then at about 28 trillion dollars will contribute over 15% to the global economy. I fully expect this to be the case as lot of necessary structural reforms that were needed are now getting in place. And these reforms lay the foundation for accelerating our national growth. A democracy of this size, with such a demographic advantage, has never existed. It is fascinating that many of us will still be around to see this rise of India happen. Let us now talk about population. By 2050, India's population is expected to be 1.6 billion. 1 in every 3 of the world's middle-class consumer will be Indian. And India will form the largest global middle class. This middle class will insulate India and drive an unmatched rate of internal consumptions. No nation has ever created such a massive middle class. Just the retail segment by itself will be worth $10 trillion. India will be the target investment for every global company. When it comes to the stock market, assuming a conservative view and taking a developed nation a 30-year stock market CAGR of 9%, the Indian market indexes would have increased by a factor of 13x, putting the Sensex in the range of 600,000. Most likely, these indexes will be an order of magnitude higher, given India's main growth is still ahead of it. I would also expect that by 2050, India would have created several of its own trillion-dollar value companies. These are all staggering numbers that define the opportunities ahead of India. Next, I will talk about my views on how the intersection in the field of renewable energy and technology are fundamentally redefining the concept of affordability and efficiencies. There are dozens of excellent research studies that have shown the correlation between energy economics and growth of nations. Ever since the first industrial revolution in 1760, energy has formed the lifeline of a nation's economy. Likewise, there is increasing research that is showing the role of information and communication technologies in driving economic growth and countries' productive capacity. Today, both the field of energy and the field of technology are rapidly intersecting. I see this technology, energy intersections, as being the single most defining factor to lift the balance of India's population, not just out of poverty, but right into the middle class bucket and leading to business models that will be transformational. Let me expand on this. I strongly believe that the marginal cost of electricity will continue to drop sharply as the renewable energy boom accelerates. India will be the least expensive producer of renewable energy. After all, the sun and wind will always be free, and there is literally no limit to how many electrons we will be able to pull out from a square inch of silicon. What makes this mix of solar, wind and storage even more transformational as its combination with digitization. Just like energy, I also believe that the cost of digitization based on storage, processing and networking will continue to follow a steep decline curve for several decades, and the marginal cost of managing bits and bytes will keep dropping. Add to this the fact that India has the cheapest broadband service and mobile devices of all nations in the world, with data prices having dropped 95% in the last 5 years and consumptions having increased 56 times. Therefore, in addition of being individually disruptive, when combined, the implication of marginal cost-based renewable energy and information technology are stunning. Therefore, I expect that inexpensive green power in combination with digital technologies that include sensor and Internet of Things, artificial intelligence and machine learning, 5G and cloud infrastructure will all converge to give us the ability to economically microsize several processes and convert every process into a service. Micro farming, micro water, micro healthcare, micro housing, micro education, micro manufacturing, the list is endless. The implication of renewable energy and technology being able to de-size existing processes is profound for both urban and even more for rural India. Now let me talk about the implication of COVID, not in terms of the pandemic, but more in terms of the acceleration that has enabled in two areas that stand to significantly benefit India. Once we get to the other side of the COVID pandemic, and if India plays its card right, I believe we are very strongly positioned to take advantage of two structural global changes that are expected to happen. First, the pandemic has driven home the fact that hyper-efficient supply chains are also hyper-fragile. The primary objective that drove supply chains for the last 20 years was cost. Post-COVID, flexibility will be treated as equally important and allow supply chains to evolve to where they should have been in the first place. Multi-source and lot of localizations to support individual markets. India stands to benefit significantly. Second, the acceleration in digital technology to manage operations remotely means there will be a structural shift between global locations where people need to be and locations where operations need to be executed. The pandemic has taught us that conventional need for proximity may be irrelevant plus risk prone. India already had a head start in this area through its digital service evolutions. it is now positioned to be a significant beneficiary of this shift in the coming days, as more companies plan to divide executions and control operations. Both these areas are transformational and can help create millions of new local jobs across the manufacturing, supply chain, and tech service sectors. In closing, let me also state that while I have spoken about the different market forces, one must keep in mind the soft power of nation. Soft power is getting others to want the outcomes India desires. And this is dependent on the historical attractiveness of the nation's political value, cultural alignment, and foreign policy approach. Combine this soft power that India has strongly demonstrated with the hard power of a $28 trillion GDP and a $30 trillion value stock market. And you have an incredible nation that is taking the journey to become the greatest opportunity of the 21st century. I hope you share my bullishness about India. Thank you.
It was really incredible. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Adani. So over to the moderator in the next session.
Hello, namaste, pranam. Welcome everybody. I am your host Akriti Anand from India and I welcome you all to the world's largest global summit that now goes digital. TiE Global Summit 2020, hosted by the Hyderabad chapter this year, redefining entrepreneurship in the new world. The summit, which is for the entrepreneurs by the entrepreneurs, where we see the brightest minds from the industry come together to share their secret mantras to success, where we dissect entrepreneurship from technical, emotional, financial, political, interpersonal, and all the other perspectives that you can think of. 40,000 plus registrations, over 350 speakers, 20,000 plus startups from across 25 nations, 135 plus investors, almost 100 plus large companies coming for the marketplace where you can pitch your next big idea, 500 plus one-on-one session. And guys, I have nothing more to say because you can see the grandeur of this virtual summit. My friends, we just witnessed the grand opening of day one by Mr. Gautam Adani, chairman and founder of Adani Group, where he gave a keynote address focusing on incredible India. Can India be the greatest opportunity of 21st century? Now it's time to go global and look at the future. Future specifically with the country that is making waves all over the news. And for this particular session, we have a very special person who's coming over. The conversation is going to be on China 2050, China's path to leadership. And for this session, our guest who we will be talking to is Mr. Robert Lawrence Kun. He's the chairman of the Kun Foundation and the recipient of China Reform Friendship Medal 2018. And he's here to share his insights on and propel China to